I'm Andy Persson. I am an ultramarathon runner. I've been running ultramarathons for about 15 years or so, and I'm here to answer 23 questions out of my running shoe. So what is the first thing you do after completing an ultra running event? Well, the first thing I normally do is have a big meal, English breakfast. And the other thing, as soon as I get home, I normally have a bath and then go to bed. How do you train for an ultramarathon? I personally just train by doing lots of slow miles, slow running, gentle running. Ideally, I think you should be really doing some strength work and a little bit of speed running, but personally, I just do the slow running. The coolest thing you've seen during an ultramarathon? Well, it depends if you talk about real or imagined. I've seen some cool hallucinations describing an amazing bejeweled path under me when I was running the tunnel, which was 200 miles running in a tunnel, and had this hallucination where I saw this amazing patterns all along the path. In terms of real things, I think probably an elk. I ran across Sweden and I always got very excited when I'd see elks coming out. I saw about 5 or 6 and that was a 350-mile race across Sweden. So yeah, the elk was my most exciting thing. What is your favourite place to run? Probably the Alps. I love running in the Alps. If I'm allowed to, I would go back to the tunnel as well because I actually loved running in the tunnel. They're two complete extremes. One, amazing scenery. The other one, just completely nothing, stripped back, bare, cool. And yeah, I love that as well. My biggest accomplishment, probably the thing I'm most proud of would be, in terms of the hardest thing I've done, was running the whole of the Southwest Coast Path, which is 630 miles. And I did that in 12 days. Yeah, that was tough. I was running 18, 20 miles a day, 20 hours a day. And my brother was crewing me with a camper van. I was to take a few hours sleep and then get going the next day. And that was a tough one, but I feel proud of having done that. How many calories do you burn in an ultra marathon? Well, I think the last one I did in Lon Las, which was 250 miles, I think I checked and it was something like 33,000 calories. But it was certainly over 30,000. What are the essentials you keep on you during an ultra marathon? My watch. My watch is essential because it not only tells me how fast I'm going, it tells me the directions. I've got a map on there and everything, so that's probably the most important thing I have with me. But also carrying food and water. So food, often gels or powder that I mix into water, and other bits of real food, and having enough water to keep going in between checkpoints or water stops. That I'd say they're the most important things I carry. What was the worst hallucination you've ever had? And a bonus, what's the best? I think the worst one was when I did the Thames Ring and I did a 250 mile, that's another 250 mile race. And at one point I was seeing witches and dogs sort of running in front of me. It was getting dark and I knew they were hallucinations, and every time I'd sort of wave them away, they'd go away, but then they would start jumping in again and they were sort of jumping in front of me on the path. So that was a bit not very nice. The best hallucination, I think it's the one in the tunnel, just seeing that beautiful pathway in front of me with all sort of diamonds and flowers, all colourful. And it was looking down at night with my head torch, it just looked amazing. And then 12 hours later, I suddenly remembered it in the daytime, looked down again, and it was all still there. So that was a nice one. What would you say to someone considering their first ultra running event? I would say enjoy it. That's the main thing. Keep positive. And I would also say train well for it. The more you train, the more miles you put in beforehand, the more you'll enjoy it. And the other key thing is don't go out too fast. That's the biggest mistake people do. They go out what feels like a comfortable pace, and then they'll crash and burn later on. So go out slower than you think you need to, and then that'll give you the energy at the end of the race. What ultra marathon would you never do again? I don't think there is a one I'd never do again. I don't tend to do many repeatedly, just because there's so many out there. I like to try new things, but I can't think of one that I wouldn't do again. There's only one ultramarathon I've DNF'd. I've failed to finish, and that was the Tour de Géant. And I would love to do that again. I would really love to go back and put that one to bed. What do you think of to keep you motivated during an ultra marathon? I think of things I'm grateful for. I think it's so important that you feel positive during a race. People DNF, people give up because they get into negative mindsets. So it may be just a mantra to really make myself think about how grateful I am to be able to be doing this. I often think about my family and how grateful I am for them. But the main thing is I think of positive things. What do your kids think of the challenges? I think they're proud of me. They say that. They're proud. They think I'm a bit crazy, but I'll take that. Yeah, I think they're pretty positive about it generally. Even when I missed my daughter's 18th birthday because I was running from John O'Groats to Land's End. What is your post-ultramarathon foot care routine? On the whole, I don't generally get a lot of problems with my feet. I did on the most recent one. And in that case, it's getting your foot up above heart level so that if it's swollen, then that goes down. And if you've got blisters, well, this one I had a blister and I think it burst while I was running, so I did cover that up after the race. But on the whole, as I say, I don't do too much about my feet. Just let them sort themselves out. Longest ultra marathon you've run so far? Well, the longest stage race I've done is the John O'Groats to Land's End, which was 885 miles. The longest in one go, a sort of a non-stop race, was the Trans-Sweden. That was 355 miles, I think it was. That took me just over 5 days, but that was, the clock didn't stop in that one. What's your favourite ultramarathon? It's a good question. It's very hard to. They're all so different. That's the thing. I do go back to the tunnel just because that is so different from all the others, and there's something really, really special about it. A type of race called a backyard ultra, and I raced in the World Championships in Tennessee, where the original Big Dog's Backyard Ultra is. So that was a really exciting event to be part of. Yeah, but then the Southwest Coast Path was it wasn't a race, but it was a self-organised thing, and that was I had sun the whole time. It was beautiful. That path is stunning. And I'd say, if I could pick the top three, it probably would be those three. The strangest thing to happen to you whilst running an ultra marathon? Again, in the tunnel, that gave me the biggest hallucinations. And the fact that they carried on afterwards. They went on for several hours. So once the tunnel had finished, my daughter and my wife picked me up and we walked back to the car, and I was still seeing things, and I was having to check with them. I was saying, are there actually some beautiful carved lettering in this wall here? And my daughter was going, no, Dad, that's just a wall. And so that was weird. And then I was seeing these sort of webs in the air. And even when I got home, when I got out of the car, I stepped out of the car and I literally thought that the council had been in and widened the road and doubled the width of the road. And I was saying to my wife, what has this happened over the weekend while I've been running? And it just felt like the whole thing was twice as wide as it had been. And then I came into the house and I was seeing some of the pictures were all in 3D. It was very weird. Incline or decline? What is worse? When I did the Tour de Géant, they had these inclines that went on for 1,600 meters, and it was just up, very steep. They were tough. They were really hard. I don't think I've had anything as hard as that. But then equally, going down really steep can be hard. But on the whole, I like going down. So yeah, I'd say the inclines are probably harder. What's next for Andy? Well, next in terms of running is I've got my 61st birthday next week. I was meant to be on my 60th birthday. I was going to do 60 miles around the neighbourhood with friends joining me. But I ended up having the surgery a few weeks beforehand. So didn't get to do that. So I've postponed it to my 61st birthday. And I've got a 2-mile route. I'm going to run laps around here. And then I've got various friends coming to join for a lap or as many as they like. And then we're having a big party in the evening. So hopefully I'll still be standing for the party and dancing. Hardest challenge you've done so far? I would say that was the Tour de Géant. As I say, the only one that I've actually not finished. I had to stop 50 miles into that because I was getting chest pain. Going out at 10 o'clock at night into the Alps in the dark on your own up another 2,000 metre climb was not a good idea. So I actually ended up in hospital there being checked over. It was all fine. I think it was the altitude, but that's a really tough race. I've run the Dragon's Back, which is from north to south of Wales over the mountains, and that describes itself as the toughest mountain race, but really that for me that was nothing compared to Tour de Gion. Best memory from an ultramarathon. I particularly remember when I was running John O'Groats to Land's End, where I would suddenly get overcome with emotion. And that's what I love about ultras. They take you to places you wouldn't normally go to. And there were little things that would trigger me. I might be listening to something and it would just suddenly have this flood of emotions, like incredible gratitude for family or friends. And so at times I just find myself sobbing by the side of the road. It was a totally bizarre experience. Yeah, for me, that's been real highlights because it's sort of brought out these incredible strength of emotions. Biggest injury? Probably on the John O'Groats Land's End. That nearly got derailed halfway through as I was coming down towards Kendal. So I think it was day 8. I started to get my right ankle was starting to swell a bit and starting to get painful. And by day 9, it was really getting quite painful and the swelling was getting worse. And I got to a point on day 9 where I was thinking, that's it, I'm going to have to stop. Steve, the guy who was race director, managed to organise a physio to come and check me over at about 10 o'clock at night as I got into Kendal. He looked at it and he said, well, it's edema, which is like a swelling. And if it's okay to carry on running, he said, as long as you sort of try and lift it as much as you can, lift it above your heart, ice it whenever you can. So we did that. I carried on running, and over the next 2 or 3 days, it gradually eased off. And by the end, sort of after 17 days, I felt totally fine again. But on the whole, I don't get injured very much, and I think it is because I do a lot of slow running. I don't do fast running. How far is too far? To be honest, I don't think there's an answer to that. I don't think there is a too far. If I'm totally honest, if I didn't have the responsibilities, the ties, I would run around the world quite happily. There are people who've done that, run around the world, and I'd love to do that. It can take 3-4 years. Once around the world, maybe, if you get to 2, 3, 4 times around the world, maybe we're heading towards too far. But in terms of just the challenge, around the world would be great. Biggest fear in general? I don't know that I'm not really afraid of very much. And again, I think actually that's one of the things with doing ultra running. I feel it's helped my mental well-being. It gives you things like resilience and puts things in perspective. So I wouldn't say there's a lot I fear. I guess not finishing a race would be the biggest fear. And I think, that's it. That's 23 questions out of the running shoe.
And where can people find you, Andy, on social media?
On social media, I've got a Facebook page on Facebook. I've got a page on Facebook, which is Andy on the Run. That's probably the best place to find me. And I video all my runs I do, and I put little videos myself up on there, mainly for my own benefit. I love going back and watching them, but I've got a number of people sort of follow and enjoy that as well.
Perfect. Here we go. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much.
There we go. That was good.